Hello, welcome to another episode of Flying High with Flutter. I'm your host, Alan Wyma. Today I have with me Tomáš, who is a security consultant. Welcome, Tomáš. How are you?
Hi, Alan. Nice to
Maybe
see you.
give a quick introduction about yourself.
So, I'm a security consultant in Talsec. We are a Czech-based mobile security company focused on app protection, API protection, prevention of reverse engineering, and we help our clients to get most of security into their applications so they can be protected against various known mobile threats. So it's like helping them to build overall security posture for their mobile applications. And I usually just talk, explain concepts, and help them to understand which part or which technologies they should use to ensure that their application is safe. And I'll help them to install RASP shielding, which is something we developed. So this is my daily bread and butter, explaining and helping others with security.
So, is Talsec specifically focusing on Flutter or just all kinds of mobile development?
We are focused on all kinds of mobile development like iOS, Android, whatever framework or environment you choose. But recently we shifted to Flutter because Flutter is quite new and its security is not so well understood yet. And a lot of developers struggles with understanding what actually should they do on their side when they are developing Flutter applications. So we are now leaning towards this Flutter and examining Flutter, learning its deep level stuff, how it works internally, so we can introduce new protection mechanisms that would be beneficial to Flutter developers.
Now, does Flutter bring more problems or less problems when it comes to security wise?
Well, as I see it, Flutter is technically more focused only on the user interface side of development, and it usually depends on underlying security mechanisms. Or if it's on Android, you still have to work with Android permissions. You still have to understand how security is set up on Android. If it's on iOS, you still have to work with iOS underlying keychain and other biometric stuff which is there. So Flutter on itself doesn't bring anything new to security, and it actually is doing really small steps towards better security, but I'm not like really uh, um, I don't like what they do because I think that their approach to security is really abysmal. And for example, if you open flutter.dev website, you will find security section. There are like 3 pages like where to report bugs and things like that, but there is not much about security written. So I think that this is a huge mistake and it should be repaired or fixed in future, because many new and like new developers are now jumping on this Flutter wagon, and they don't know anything about security. And if you look at Android or iOS security pages, they are great. You will find a lot of resources there and everything. But if you look at Flutter, you will find nothing. So you may be misled to think that you don't have to do anything, which is,
Hmm.
of course, wrong. So this is something unfortunate, but that's the state of that's current state.
Yeah, I mean that's the tricky part, right? You did get it right in the head where it's Flutter's really focused on the UI and some of the underlying things when using Flutter is definitely going to be abstracted, right? I mean, you're just writing a Flutter app. You're not writing an iOS app using Flutter. If you understand what I'm trying to say, like you're not really focusing on iOS parts, except like you said, if you have to add in permissions or some other iOS or platform specific things.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. And yeah, so the one of things that Flutter tries to bring is obfuscation, but it again is done a little bit weird way, because it provides you with a flag dash dash obfuscate, but in reality this obfuscation isn't doing anything which is known as obfuscation. It just minimizes or like renames variables to be shorter and nothing else. So uh, oftentimes people ask me like, should we turn this obfuscation and will my code be obfuscated suddenly? And I just have to explain them, this is nothing which will bring you any obfuscation to your app. It just minimizes variables and that's it. Nothing else. No code flattening, no like shaping of code, no virtualization of code, no advanced features or which are natural to or nowadays known in obfuscation field. It just renames variables. So this is only thing that is in Flutter currently available in the basic Flutter, and I think that's sad because people then lose a lot of security features that are naturally available on other platforms.
Um, I mean, you're talking about obfuscation, right? I mean, do you mind to kind of give a talk about what is, or give an explanation about what is obfuscation and why would I want to have that?
Well, obfuscation is a broader subject, but it's oftentimes explained like hiding the real meaning of your code, so the attacker can't understand your algorithms, your business logic, and it helps you or it helps you to get some prevention in case attacker would be like trying to infiltrate your business and like to understand your business, and this will postpone the possible breach. So obfuscation is not like cryptographically secure or like this level of protection, but it's like practical level of security when you want to hide something for to introduce some additional time needed for reverse engineering on reverse engineer's side. So this is concept. Some people dislike it because a lot of purists would prefer to have everything open sourced, which is completely okay for me. But other people prefer to have their intellectual property protected so they can handle their authorship or their rights and copyright. So there are various people, and uh, I I understand that a lot of people need and want obfuscation. So uh, in case of Flutter, it's quite hard to get this thing done because there is no other obfuscation possible for Flutter applications in comparison with Android, for example, where you can use various obfuscators like dprotect or MLLL to get obfuscation on Java code, Kotlin code, C code, C++ code, I think also Rust. So it's completely different, and Flutter is way behind in these areas.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you needed to keep something so secret, but I mean, even if without the code, you can still kind of get some information, right? Just by say, you tap a button and it makes you can kind of like listen to the requests coming in and out of the app, right? You can also get some information from that too. Basically, sniff the packets.
Yes, for that you would use like network level countermeasures, like certification pinning, or
Mm.
maybe a tool we've developed recently called AppiCrypt, which will help you to check that all the traffic is coming from a genuine application. So there are various approaches, standard approaches that reverse engineers do, and the work we do in Talsec is to create obstacles so uh, this normal penetration testing or reverse engineering work can't be done, and hence your application will get more resilient against possible attacks. As we, for example, I talk about that obfuscation, I have another example. For example, there are really precious algorithms which for example image processing or camera processing, which you don't want to give away because there are other market competitors trying to get the same algorithm done. But at the same time, you can't distribute this algorithm like in some other way. You have to have it statically placed in the application. If, for example, if there are some kind of camera like application or Adobe like photo editor, you need to have these algorithms in the application baked in. Yet you still don't want to uh, like give chance to your competitors to copy or understand how you did it, how you uh, solved some problem. So there's another. This is some kind of protection needed. Um, Also, commonly we are requested to protect payment processors. If you have, for example, some Revolut-like or Tide-like payment application, the financial industry is really strict on the security, and such applications are required to withstand some penetration testing and reverse engineering attempts. So this is also a really common customer for us. So we help to protect these banking industry clients.
Yeah, we have comments in YouTube came in saying it's funny because Flutter creators praise themselves and say obfuscation is a great thing for securing apps, but you obviously don't agree that that should be the only thing, right?
Like obfuscation is decent way to protect some aspects, but there are other vectors we help to protect. Um, for example, overlay attacks. You can have some third-party application which will try to steal, for example, your data from within application. So you can imagine you as a user have some uh, application with sensitive information about you, and some third-party application will run overlay on top of your application, which will, for example, sniff your tabs so they can collect, for example, your PIN, or they will record whatever you will display in the application. So some third-party application can basically read all the numbers on your transactions in your banking applications easily if you have no overlay protection. So this is one kind of threat which you can't solve by obfuscation, but it's common on mobile platforms.
There is one thing that always comes up in my mind, and I think a lot of us are guilty of this, where we compile our app with, say, some special key inside, right? Like an API key, something like that. For sure, I know that's not the right thing to do because basically somebody can decompile your app and strings are basically stored as just plain text strings, right? What do you recommend that we should do instead of just say storing the plain string within the app?
Well, this is of course a thing that is commonly asked, and our approach is an AppiCrypt technology we've developed, and that is technology that will help you to create a secure channel between your application and your backend system, like one-to-one in-band approach, without any third-party services. And we can create something called like continuous testing of your application, so that you will know on your backend that a request comes from your application. And why I'm going to say it like this, you should technically not include your keys in the application, but you should download them dynamically in best case. And with the AppiCrypt, you can ensure that the request for like get me my keys is coming from your genuine application without any reverse engineering attempts, because it's really strong and sound. And you can then give the keys on demand to your client application dynamically. So This is the best approach we have nowadays. But if you just put your keys in plain text in your applications, they are simply readable. Just you can write strings, name of your application, APK in your terminal, and you will see all the all the API keys. So you should do something, but it's hard. Yeah. So I recommend AppiCrypt technology for this.
Mm. Now, so the AppiCrypt is gonna define some kind of special communication, right? It's quite secure. Can you talk about what that protocol is, or is that a secret between
Uh,
what's there?
it, it's uh, it's based on our RASP shield in your application. So if you put a RASP shield in your application, that will collect various threat signals and ensure that there is no ongoing reverse engineering attempt. So this RASP shield gives us the information that this application client is trustable, that it's genuine, that it's like it's there's no threat going on, and this information is magically added to a long, let's say, cryptogram or like long string and encrypted on your client. It's all done in our SDK. And on your backend side, with your key, you can decrypt this payload, check that, okay, this device is not rooted, there is no tampering of system, the application is not tampered. So I know that this request is coming from my application, and I can send back the API key for some third-party service, some logging service, whatever. So this way, you will know that you are not giving your keys to anyone, but you are giving your keys just to your application, and then your application can do whatever uh, it needs to do with those keys. But at that moment, you already know that you've done the most they can do to ensure that no one can get access to your keys, and yet the keys are available to your application.
What about like if I mean when you send those off, it's gonna go into memory, right? So are they also encrypted too? Because people can probably also read memory using different kinds of ways, right?
Yes, we also check the memory and sanitize the memory. So uh, if we'll see that something is trying to get into memory, this request, you will see in this AppiCrypt request that this device is tampered somehow. It's actually quite hard to do it in a legitimate way, because there are dozens of signals we can use, or various checks we can do to ensure that someone is trying to attack your application, its memory, and whatever it needs. So it's hard to hack it, because um, maybe we will not spot directly the memory manipulation, but we will see that the device is not genuine in some other way, like it's, for example, has unlocked bootloader or something like that. And it will we provide like a really high level of security, that or like knowledge that device is safe. So it's highly improbable that someone would be like someone could do such an attack. Of course, it would be done on some like really high level, like Samsung, for example, released unsafe device with some malware pre-installed. It would be hard even for us, but we provide like really high level security. Yeah.
So we have another question from the audience, and he asked if you can provide an example of such overlay attack. We talked about overlay attacks earlier.
In the past, these attacks were popularized as cloak and dagger. So you can Google cloak and dagger attacks on Android, and you will find a lot of resources on this kind of attacks. These attacks were relevant for up to Android 7 devices, and then they were mitigated in some way. So For example, for newer device Androids, you don't have to solve this problem, but a lot of application vendors still supports Android 5 and newer, so there is still a gap that needs to be solved.
We have another question from Tony Thomas, who's asking, while implementing SSL pinning for Flutter application, do we also need to do it for both Dart network layer and native network layer? Or if our app is using both networking, is there a library that does it both? So
Mm,
basically, if we implement the SSL pinning for Flutter, does it also kind of protect us on the Dart side, or do we need to actually do pinning in many other places? Like basically, I guess he's trying to say, where should I do the pinning of my SSL certificate? On the native side, on the Flutter side, or
I
on the Dart
understand it.
side? Yeah.
Currently, you have pinning available out of the box in Flutter, I think. So you don't have to develop it yourself in case you are if you like the pre-made one. So you don't have to develop it yourself. The current one is developed in Dart, I think, but we also provide a dynamic certification pinning, SSL pinning, and that is for the cases when you want to solve issues with SSL pinning, because SSL pinning has some issues, and those are, for example, if someone won't update your application and your certifications expire and you will have to roll out a new version of application, those users with old version of application will be unable to connect to your services. So, for example, for this you need something better, and in that case you have to develop it yourself. Like you said, you can choose if you will use native or Dart. I think that both ways are possible, and it's up to you.
Yeah, we have people saying, thank you for your time, for what you're sharing. And again, your biggest fan is me Yeti, I guess, and asking those kind of questions. I mean, I think there's also an 80-20 rule to security, right? I mean, most people's apps maybe will never be as popular as, say, the top 10 apps on any of the app stores. But that doesn't mean that we should not be worrying about security, and security should not be an afterthought, right? And you mentioned
Exactly.
earlier
Yes.
that a lot of people will kind of start programming with Flutter, or there's a lot of beginner developers. I mean, is there some kind of like 80-20 rule that we could apply saying what would be 20% of security stuff that we can do that will protect us at least 80%? Like what kind of small things can we do that can be a big help for our apps when we're developing them security wise?
Okay, so really simple things you can do are like if you want to check your security posture, you can try Mobile Security Framework, MOPSF, its acronym. You will find this project on GitHub. You can just run it in a Docker, so it's a few of commands, and you will drag and drop your application into it, and it will do some automated analysis, statistical analysis of your application, and you will quickly see if you have any visible secrets, if you have any unprotected uh, entry points to your application, or if you have other, like, for example, URLs to your databases. And so it will generate you automatically a report which you can read yourself and see how well you have done. So you can use this mobile application, mobile security framework uh, to check your security. Then, if you want to be really strict, there is OWASP, Mobile Application Standard, and that thing comes with like 90 different checks for areas like safe storage, authentication, cryptography, resiliency, architecture, uh, platform specific things. So like 90 checks for which you will check yourself that you did correctly, that you didn't leave any empty or blind spots in your application. And this is actually something really standard nowadays. This is part of penetration testing process to check that application adheres to this OWASP mesh standard, and you can also try it on your own application. I should warn you that this will take you like a month of work if you will do it first time, because it's a ton of data and ton of things you have to read and check. But this is the most complete security checklist and standard you can find today for mobile applications. It's actually written for iOS and Android, but don't worry, majority of these things are also relevant for Flutter application on mobile platforms. So you will do good if you will try to check it yourself and ensure that your application is adhering to this standard. It actually comes with something called security profiles, and those profiles will help you to check the subset of security features your application should have. So, for example, if you are the most sensitive government financial application, you will need its most strict profile with resiliency and everything. But in many cases, you will find out that your application can have lesser requirements from the standard. So you will maybe have a lot less work because some security profiles are quite easy to pass. So this is something you can do to ensure that you are developing application security. But as I said, it takes a lot of time to do it right.
Now you keep talking about this AppiCrypt, right? Can you talk more about it? 'Cause it seems like it does more than just a couple of things. It seems that it has a lot of utility, right?
Yeah, yeah. So on the device side, we'll collect all the information about the system, about the application, about all various hacking or known hacking approaches which can be detected from within the application. So, for example, if someone tries to create a fake clone of your application, we can easily detect it because it will have different signatures and things like that. So we'll collect these signals and use this to ensure that whenever you will add this cryptogram to your network call, on your backend side, you will decrypt it and understand whether this call is we actually were granted Ernst and Young, the cyberspace trophy for this innovation. So we're really proud about this technology, and it's something that really blurs the protection because it's not only client protection or not API protection, but it actually connects application and API protections together. So your API, and that's this something really I should really stress out, is that your API will be protected at the same time against, for example, API abusal, DDoS attacks, botnets, other scripters, maybe some scalpers or scrapers or other illegitimate attempts to extract your business logic from your API. So this AppiCrypt not only handles application security, but it actually protects everything from application to your backend, and with no like delays or no artificial or other systems involved. You just install our technology into your application, and you will set up it on your backend side in some gateway or in ingest or other technology you use on your backend, and you will magically get a lot of security baked in.
Sounds pretty powerful. I mean, is this available for free, or is there part of it that's available for free, or is it 100% paid? How does it work? How can I use it?
This AppiCrypt is 100% paid, but we provide like a free tasting of our services, and I'm thankful you asked about it because we like 1 year ago we released a completely freemium version of our shielding product, and you can find it on PubDev under name Free RASP. So Free RASP is a really popular plugin nowadays for Flutter applications that will give you a lot of safety checks into your application, and it's freemium model, so you can use it for applications up to 100k users monthly, I think. So a really generous offer, and this free RAS will help you to know if your application uh, is being targeted by some reverse engineering or republished on some third-party store, if your application uh, is being hooked by some Freda or Shadow or other hooking framework, or if your application was installed from some untrusted installation method, like, for example, from ADB or some third-party store. And this is not has no full power of AppiCrypt. The free RASP is only application side shield, but it will help you a lot to ensure and maybe like check if your application is not being actively attacked somewhere. So we are really proud about this free RASP. It's already installed in more than 1,000 of applications. So we have a like solid track record for this free RASP, and community has helped us a lot to initially iron out any bugs or things like that. So it's really stable now, and it will uh, give you a lot of value for free, as I said. So definitely check free RASP for Flutter by Talsec on PubDev, and you'll see if it will help you.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to check this out. I'm quite curious about this because I do have a lot of clients who ask me questions though. But one more question though too, because we can build Flutter apps using, of course, web, Windows, Mac OS. Does this tool also work for those two, or no?
Unfortunately, not. This tool works only for Android and iOS, and we don't support desktop or web yet, because these platforms have a completely different set of threats than we have solved so far in our mobile shields. But I hope that one day we will also cover these areas. But for now, it's only for mobile platforms, as I said. But I think that you can configure your application so that it will be used only for these platforms, and you will leave your web-based version intact, because um, in fact, I will leave the platform, the desktop platform aside. But speaking of web deployment, you don't have as many threads as you have for mobile application. You have a different threads, but if you develop your application with Flutter and create a web build, and you will serve this web build from some web server, you should be fine without this additional protection, because there are no those kind of threats we have to solve on mobile platforms.
Okay, we have another question from Tony Thomas. Tony's asking, can you compare SSL pinning to AppiCrypt, please? Because he's new to security.
Yes, thank you for question, Tony. Uh, like this is something like a completely new level of or layer of security on top of the traditional network security. So SSL pinning on itself will only grant you that your application is talking to your backend, but not the other way. And this SSL pinning is mainly done because you want to prevent man-in-the-middle attacks. So to prevent man-in-the-middle attacks, you need SSL pinning. But this is just one of many other possible attacks. So this AppiCrypt also covers all the other attacks. So there is no like direct comparison. So I think that it's hard to compare this side by side. You can have both, and because why not? And the SSL pinning is easy to do on Flutter, but on itself, AppiCrypt should be much more powerful than SSL pinning. So I would say that you can even no, you shouldn't leave the SSL pinning because there are other things. Yeah, so you should ideally employ both these technologies because you can have some third-party plugins who may communicate over your configuration. Yet it's really complicated because you can employ some third-party plugin that will not use the SSL pinning you will provide. So it's really a big mess, and you have to consult every application case specifically. So yes, you should use both these technologies. They can complement each other. It's completely dependent on the case.
Now, I had a quick question over here. Sorry. A lot of people are using Firebase for their backend, right? Maybe they're not an expert in backends or whatever reason. I know there's quite a lot of people using it in professional instance. Now, if I install Firebase by default, am I pretty well protected with my backend? I mean, does Firebase offer something, or do you have any insight on this at all?
Yes, I have insight on this, and no, there is no additional protection because Firebase is depending on which services, if it's database, real-time database, authentication, Crashlytics, or that monitoring thing. There is no like security on itself baked in. So if you it's just connection to the Firebase services, and if you install it, you have no security in it. It's just what you would expect. It talks to those Firebase databases and nothing else. So you still need to add additional security mechanisms on top of these if you want to ensure. For example, we have a really nice use case with the Firebase authentication. Uh, when your application uses Firebase authentication, this it uses actually JOT to authenticate user. So once the user signs in from the application, the Firebase server will return a JOT, the token for authentication, into your application as a single file. And some third-party attacker for maybe able to exfiltrate somehow this thing. So for that, there are various approaches how an attacker may be able to exfiltrate this JOT token, and it's a really serious threat because it's effectively something called session hijacking. So if you want to prevent session hijacking, you need to have additional security layers like AppiCrypt. I see Yeti is asking about Firebase security rules. Those are mainly used to prevent, for example, enumerating of your databases and to set up user roles on the content, if I remember correctly. So yes, those are a great way to prevent or to set up who has access, like access management. But still, if you have some administrator application for mobile phone, which will talk to the backend, and someone will create a clone or extract its secrets and make fake fake calls to your Firebase backend. Such an attacker will be able to attack your database because he will use legitimate secrets and user profile and access rights. So uh, these security rules doesn't solve the mobile threats. And for example, if you have issue like many uh, e-commerce customers have with scrapers and scalpers, those are attackers who try to find some discounted items or to learn how you price your products. Such kind of attackers won't be stopped by Firebase security rules. So Firebase security rules definitely have to be set up, yet they don't do much from the attacker's standpoint of view from mobile app.
I mean, do you actually advise people not to use Firebase, or do you think Firebase is okay? You just need to add some additional protection to it.
Yes, use Firebase is as good as any storage service, but you should set up additional security layers and uh, build some other layers of security on top of your business logic, because this on itself is mainly a database protection and nothing else. For example, another kind of problem is, for example, evil admin. That is someone who is already in your business and can see in your database. And for example, you also want to protect stored data against evil admin. And in that case, you have to also create some encryption which will be on top of your storage service. So there are various business cases where you will need to do something on top of this basic fundamental security. So things like AppiCrypt, free RASP, upshielding in general is really important nowadays.
I thought I knew enough about security, but feel like maybe I don't know enough after talking to you. There's way too many ways to stay on top of things. I mean, how do you keep up with what's going on? I mean, is there a security newsletter or something that you're always reading to kind of keep up on things, or how do you kind of keep up on the latest attacks to kind of keep ahead of potential hackers?
I I follow all the hackers who are publicizing open in the industry, so I learn what are current trends from the source. I also follow the current security bulletins because, for example, Android has really great security bulletins where they uh, enumerate all the bugs and fixes they've fixed for the current release. Uh, I also follow people on Twitter who talk about security, and there are a lot of people. So there is no single source of security knowledge. You have to like follow the crowd, build your knowledge base from many sources. Uh, Unfortunately, there is no like single security bulletin, especially for mobile developers. So it's still quite great field to start security consulting if you are into it.
We have another question over here from Tony Thomas. Tony's asking, what's the pricing model for AppiCrypt, and is there any discounts for startups?
The pricing model of AppiCrypt and our services is like on demand discussed. So if you are interested, it can be discussed on for your specific case. But we usually set a pricing based on the assumed number of users installs for your whole business. So we usually have some price for businesses above 1 million of users, and um, we usually like to, I won't give you prices or numbers because I don't know them by head, but it's like it will save you 3 months of work on your site or more. So it's like 3 months of your work, uh, and it's it's yearly based plan, so it's a subscription service. But we don't have any back ties to us because that would make it unsecure. So we just give away you all the resources, all the necessary packages and everything, install guide, and you are then we only support you and give you updates, but we don't have any back ties to us because that would be like unsecure or bad way. So if you want, we can discuss this individually, but as I said, for example, the free RASP can be tried completely for free, and it's really the best offer we can give because it's free, and you will maybe love us because I think that the free RASP is really superb package in terms of security and really popular, as I said, thousands of applications.
That's good. I mean, it's good to at least get an idea how useful this could be because some of these tools are, of course, they're probably very good and worth the price, but they're a little bit high for somebody to plop down some money on it. At least we can get an idea by trying out the free one. The what's it called? Free Wasp, right? Free RASP.
Yes, yeah. Free RASP, free and RASP. Yes, it's free. Yeah, of course we give also trials. So if you would like to try the AppiCrypt, you can ask us, and we'll think out some trial or prepare some trial version for you. So it's still discussed individually. We would like to have some self care portal where you would set up everything yourself, but uh, we are security guys. We are not good web designers, so this will have this will be in some future. But for now, we do it manually. This is the deployment to the customers.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I mean, I think we got a really good kind of round overview. Is there something special that you wanted people to know about before we start to sign off? Because
Firstly, I would like to thank everyone who's hearing this listening to this podcast, and who's chosen this episode, because that means that you are trying to bump up your security and you are doing some extra steps to ensure that your customers and you yourself, your business, whatever, is secured. So this is the best. I love people who like to do an extra step to do security right. So I would thank you for listening to this podcast specifically, and definitely try the free RASP and see yourself.
awesome. I think the last thing I want to ask is, if people wanted to get, you kept saying that they could get in contact with you. What's the best way to get in contact with you, or if they wanted to know or like try and talk to you about using the paid version of Free RASP, how or
You can
AppiCrypt, how to get in touch with you?
you can find our website talsec.app on the internet. It's quite easy to find. So it's Talsec, and uh, you can also find me on Twitter if you would like to chit chat with me or follow the sources I publish on my Twitter account. You may be also interested into security insights. So we have a blog where we publish regularly our insights in security. For example, recently we released a paper about secure storages. So there is a comparison of secure storages for Flutter. You can also find a free how to hack and how to protect Flutter app guide on our blog. So check the Talsec website and our blog, and maybe you'll find something that will be beneficial for you.
Awesome. Again, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate this talk about security. I think you and I will both agree that security is always the last, maybe even never considered to even thought about sometimes, which is just sad. But there's definitely quite a few small things that you could do, and I think those scanners that you mentioned earlier are definitely a really good step to go forward. Again, I want to thank you for coming on, and hopefully have you back again in the future.
Yeah, thank you, Alan, and I hope to see you in the future. Goodbye.